What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Cjthecheesedj here, and we are back with another top 7 list. And today we are taking a look at top 7 dinos, creatures, whatever the heck you want to call them, that are normally forgotten by players. And they just kind of live around the arc, not doing much. They're just kind of forgotten. They don't get tamed up or anything like that. They're just kind of sitting there, annoying you, frustrating you. So we're going to go into this list, kicking off at number 7. Now, bear in mind that the creatures we do have on this list are before the TLC pass, because obviously after the TLC pass has come out, people have obviously gone around and tamed up the new dinos because they obviously have the new abilities for themselves. So do keep that in mind. There is only really one creature on this list, and it is number 7 on this list. So do take that into mind. But without further ado, let's get into the list. Coming in at number 7, we have the Sarco. Now, like I said, most players forget about the Sarco because you've obviously got the Baryonyx, the Cjthecheesedj that people tame up in favor of the Sarco. So unfortunately, this little guy gets left behind. Well, he's not so little. He gets left behind. Well, he really shouldn't, because honestly, he is a very strong mount. You can see here, this poor Megalodon isn't even going to last against our attacks. Now, he's very fast underwater, he's quite fast on land, and he can travel up the streams and rivers located throughout the lands of the Ark. So do take that into mind when taming these guys up. Now, as well as that, with the TLC pass, which unfortunately has not dropped for us yet, but like I said, this is taking into the fact that the TLC pass is not out yet, the Sarco does gain a death roll ability, which is obviously going to make players prefer him over some of the other tames. And he's got really solid stats. He's got a solid amount of health, solid amount of stamina, really decent weight, and a decent amount of melee damage behind himself. He can easily take on the likes of a Bronto. He's relatively fast on land. You can see he kind of looks a little bit silly walking on his little quadruped legs. But, that's all there really is for the Sarco. Most players forget about him because, like I said, they go instead after the Baryonyxes or the Cjthecheesedj, thinking that they're slightly better. I can kind of see their point, but at the same time, people forget about the Sarco, and I honestly do not think that he should be forgotten because he's a really good tame. But like I said, the TLC pass will come out shortly, and a lot of people will be favouring the Sarco over some of those other guys because of his unique abilities that they have added for him. At number 6, we have the Chalice of Theorem. Now, this guy is definitely forgotten about. I really don't see any players taming these guys up, mainly because they're really annoying to tame in terms of what you need to feed them in order to tame them. You pretty much need to feed them beer, which requires you to build a beer barrel and go about fermenting your own beer, which is just a really big pain in the butt. So a lot of people don't bother taming these guys up because, they can easily substitute them for Megatheriums, even other herbivores which, lack more power than these guys. However, these guys are pretty powerful. You can see the amount of stuff we are able to actually gather with these guys. They are able to gather thatch, they are able to gather wood, they are able to gather a crap ton of berries. They also hit rather hard. You can see the Parasaur here, they also have a secondary ability with a rock throw, or a dung throw, whatever the heck you want to call it, that actually does a lot of damage to creatures. Now, as well as that, it also does damage stone structures as well, which can be really useful. As well as that, these guys have actually really good stats, more so better than the Sarco. You can see they're 4,500 health, 1,500 stamina, 700 weight. These guys are pretty powerful, and they're easily able to gather a lot of resources in terms of berries, thatch, and wood. Obviously not on par with the Megatherium or the Therizinosaurus, but can the Therizinosaurus or the Megatherium do this to a poor Iguanodon? Lob boulders into it until it bleeds to death? That's right, none of them can. So do take that into mind when thinking about taming these guys up. Honestly, the Chalice of Theorems are kind of worth it. I really enjoy them, running around with them. They are rather majestic looking, horse, ape looking things. They can lob boulders. They're good for raiding because obviously if you don't really want to waste the resources to break into a stone structure, you can bring one of these guys along and break into it with the boulder toss, which essentially acts as a portable catapult. So that's why these guys are number 6 on the list of forgotten creatures. Coming in at number 5, we have the Khano itself. Now, this guy is definitely one of the most forgotten creatures throughout Ark, just because a lot of people don't bother taming this guy up anymore, because, to be honest, he's kind of redundant nowadays. A lot of people prefer taming Allosauruses over the Khano, or even just going straight for a Rex. Even raptors are overtaking the ability of Khanos. You know, they don't have really any unique abilities aside from their slight knockback that their secondary attack does. You know, the raptors have the pounce ability, so people are out taming raptors, you know, and if they don't go for raptors, well, they just skip straight to the Rex or go for Allosauruses, because there are so many alternatives for the Khano that, you know, he just kind of gets left behind. You know, even the Megalosauruses, the night creature ones, they get tamed up over the Khanos. You know, they're just not really worth taming anymore. The resources that you put towards taming up a Khano can easily go towards taming up a Rex, taming up a Megalosaurus, taming up an Allosaurus. You know, these guys don't really have anything unique about them aside from their little stubby arms and their little horns on their head. Other than that, these guys, you know, don't have anything going for themselves, so people just tame up Rexes, Allosauruses, Megalosauruses over the Khano. That's why the Khano is number 5 on this list, because he's the poor, forgotten son of the Rex. Number 4 on this list is the Kentosaurus. Now, a lot of people forget about this guy as well because, you know, they just can't go to the effort of taming them up. And, you know, you can't really ride them, so people don't value them as much. But these guys are great. They're easily able to take on the likes of Gigas, you know, Argents, you know, enemy players, everything. Because essentially what they do is they do that. They run around in circles, they spike you, and then they bleed you to death. And, you know, they pretty much just hold you there until you die. These guys are great. However, when you are taming them up, these guys can do that to you. So do take into mind that and, you know, just avoid their spiky tails that can essentially impale you and bleed you to death. You know, these guys reflect a fraction of the damage that enemies do against it. So, you know, Gigas bite against them. They reflect that damage back onto the Giga. It's great. As well as that, they also do bleed damage to creatures such as the Parasaur, you know, other creatures as well. They're able to impale humans. So if you've got a bunch of these guys protecting your base, you know, they get impaled. You can easily finish off the humans if they don't kill your Kentro and, you know, force them to be dropped to the ground. The Kentros are great base perimeter dinos because they can deal a crap ton of damage to enemy dinosaurs. They can grapple birds, they can grapple humans, and you can then finish them off yourselves or have your other dinos in the area maul them to death. You can easily combo a Kentosaurus with, you know, a Rex or even other larger carnivores, allowing you to kill them. You'll see if we whistle to get the Parasaur, you can see the Parasaurs actually die. Now the Kentro here will spike him, and the Khano will actually try and kill the Lystrosaurus in the Kentro's tail. So, you know, you find that not many players tame these guys up because, well, they just can't be bothered or they don't think they're valuable. But I honestly think these guys are pretty valuable creatures in terms of base defense, and they are definitely a viable creature to have part of your roster with. Now coming in at number 3 is the Pachyrhinosaurus. This guy is pretty much the Trike's cousin in that he's got the same faceplate, takes the same reduced damage on his faceplate, but he has the added ability of being able to pacify or enrage fellow creatures. You can see the Sabertooths there that were attacking us are now pacified, and they don't really want anything to do with us. You know, you don't really see these guys tamed up all too much because obviously people aren't going to bother because they have access to the Trike, other herbivores. The only real thing that these guys provide is that passive, you know, flow of gassy air, I guess you could call it, that really, you know, sets them apart from everything else. So people don't really bother taming these guys up. But you can see there, we're able to pacify the Allosaurus for a solid 20 seconds, which enables us to get away. But, you know, you just don't see many guys taming these things up because, you know, why would they waste their time when they can, you know, easily tame up Trikes that do the same job, you know, other herbivores that do the same job, if not better. Only thing these guys have for themselves is their fumes that they produce. Other than that, they don't really get tamed up because, you know, they're practically useless outside of those aspects, which is why these guys are number 3 on the forgotten list of dinosaurs, because of those exact reasons that I stated. At number 2, we have the Tapajara, otherwise known as the Tape Jar. Now, honestly, I don't see many of these being tamed up either across any of the arcs. They do have the tech saddle for themselves, but other than that, they have the ability to seat 3 riders, and that's pretty much it. Not many people bother to tame these guys up because they're kind of a pain in the butt to tame up, because obviously you need to be able to get close enough to them with ghillie armor, you need to bowl of them, and then you need to knock them out. People are easily just going to spend their time taming up Pteranodons and breeding Pteranodons selectively for the extra stats that the Tapajara offers in terms of weight and health. Other than that, people just don't tame up the Tapajara because they've got access to the Pteranodon, the Argy, you know, other flies that just do the job better than the Tapajara do. So you don't see this guy with very much screen time. You know, he does have the tech saddle for himself. Even then, that doesn't really commit players to taming him up because, you know, they just don't see the value in him when they can easily spend the same amount of time, if not less, taming up Pteranodons and breeding them for, you know, more select stats, better uses. You know, the Pteranodons technically are faster because they have their roll ability, and they are actually faster than the Tapajara. They are able to fly faster. You know, the Tapajara can only pivot on the spot, hold 3 riders, and wield a tech saddle. People don't really use that all that often. So that's why the Tapajara is number 2 on this list, because I honestly think he is one of the biggest forgotten dinosaurs, and he is probably one of the coolest dinosaurs that should not be forgotten. So take that into mind if you guys plan on taming some of these guys up. And finally, number 1, the one creature you've all been waiting for, is the Terrorbird. This guy is one of the, if not the, probably the biggest forgotten creature on Ark. There are just so many other creatures, dinosaurs, everything that can replace Terrorbirds that, you know, people don't really use them all that often. The only thing that sets them apart from the rest of the creatures located in Ark is their little fluffy chicken glide dance ability. This essentially enables them to float through the air, preventing any fall damage that they take. You know, they can get pretty far on this ability, they can turn pretty much any direction that they want, but people don't need that ability. You know, people can easily just jump off their creatures' land without taking fall damage. You know, you don't need to worry about that. Look, I'll show you for example now. People don't bother with the Terrorbirds because, you know, look, boom. You don't take fall damage. I took a little bit of fall damage, but your Terrorbird doesn't take fall damage. All your dinosaurs that you do this with don't take fall damage using this method. So, you know, you don't really need the glide ability. And in terms of damage output, they aren't the best at damage output either. You know, you've got Sabertooths, you've got Ravagers, you've got Direwolves, you've got everything that easily trumps the Terrorbirds. These guys don't see a lot of screen time. I honestly do not think they're worth it. And they are the reason they are number 1 on this list of forgotten creatures throughout Ark. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the list. Let me know if you did down below. But other than that, thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.